the Foundations webinar.
Afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this month's webinar from Foundations. Hi, I'm Paul. Good to see you. And for those of you who aren't aware of Foundations, we've been supporting local authorities and home improvement agencies across England since 2000. So it would have been our 20th birthday this year. In fact, it is our 20th birthday this year. And the party we had planned has unfortunately been postponed, but I'm sure it will come back later in the year. For those of you who don't know, we're also funded by the government, so we're here to help. And almost everything we do is free. The webinars, training, other events and workshops, and any help or assistance that you need with home adaptations or repairs. So if you want to find out more about us, you can at...
Find out more at foundations.uk.com.
And today, Parity Trust, carers, University of Bath, and we'll start off with the usual news and views. Plus, at the end, we will have
the DFG surgery. Your questions answered.
So if you've got any issues, questions, tricky cases that you'd like me to answer Martin Lewis style, then please use the Q&A box, which you should find on your Zoom toolbar. And as usual, please use the chat box. Any comments, suggestions, thoughts as we go through are very welcome. So if you want to say hi to each other, that'd be great too.
Poll time. Let's see what you think.
As usual, we'll start off with a poll just to see who's with us today and where you are. So the first one is, what's your job role and where are you watching us from today? So that should now have appeared on your screen. If it hasn't popped up, then it's usually something to do with the pop-up blockers on your web browser. I see lots of you voting already. I'll just give you 30 seconds to finish voting. Poll there and share the results with you. So as usual, lots of OTs, caseworkers, technical officers and managers and a selection of others. And where's everybody working from today? So most people still in the home office, mixture of home office, dining room, 3 in the back garden, 6 on the sofa and 3 people in bed. Okay, 12 people at the back of the work or in the office. So I think that's slightly higher than last month. But if you're in bed, I hope you've got a clipboard there, so you've got your pen and paper handy to make notes. Great. Well, we'll have another poll a little bit later on. So I mentioned this in passing last month, but I wanted to properly introduce you to our free training bonanza. And you might be thinking, what do I mean by a bonanza? Well, we've got a range of courses that you can now do for free, and they're all by e-learning, so you can do them as and when you want to, and there's quite a list. So fans of the generation game, see how many of these you can remember as they fly past. There's stuff like Bribery Act awareness, GDPR, consumer rights, asbestos awareness, coronavirus awareness, fire safety, health safety, RIDDOR, slips, trips and falls, autism awareness, challenging behaviour, coronavirus awareness and control, dementia awareness, disability awareness, person-centred care, safeguarding, care certificate, substance misuse awareness, complaints handling, conflict management, safer recruitment, time management, effective call management, managing people, managing your digital profile. So that's what I meant by an agenda, by a bonanza. And it's all free. The only thing you need to do is work for or with an accredited home improvement agency. That's because the training's actually been paid for by Foundations Independent Living Trust, whose charitable objective is to support the work of home improvement agencies through a generous donation from Taylor Wimpey. So if you work for or with an accredited HIA, and you can find out if you do by going to findmyhia.org.uk and see if it's listed. If your agency isn't listed, it is free to become accredited, so please get in touch with us at Foundations and we can go through the process with you. It's relatively painless to do as well. And we'll have a booking form available soon if anybody's interested in taking up some of those training. So we'll have hundreds every month available. So yeah, keep an eye out on the newsletter and on the Foundation's website, and details of how you can book will be coming very soon. And it won't be a bonanza if there wasn't more to follow. So there will be more free training on energy efficiency and fuel poverty next month. So tune into next month's webinar to find out all about that.
And now it's time for the guest.
So very pleased our first guest this week. We've got Shaun Hunt and Nick Webb from Parity Trust, who provide a range of loans and finance for home adaptations and home improvements. So I will pop their presentation up and hand over to SJ and Nick.
Thank you, Paul. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, you're coming through loud and clear.
Marvellous. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's SJ. I'm the Chief Exec of Parity Trust, and I'm just going to give you a quick run through of what we do. And Nick is my operations manager, and so he deals with the day-to-day of the organisation and all the loan applications. And he is currently on the chat box, ready and waiting to answer any questions that you may have as I talk you through what we do. So that's us. We are a registered charity. We are the only non-bank specialist lender that's fully regulated by the FCA for mortgages, and we've had that regulation since 2011, having been established since 1999, originally a collaboration with Lloyds Bank and Portsmouth Housing Association down on the south coast, and doing unsecured loans and things like that to start with. But we evolved over time, and once we got our accreditation from the FCA, we focused on mortgages to help people who are the most vulnerable, cannot access mainstream lending, and some people need a secured loan or a mortgage for a very small amount, including a boiler loan, which can be about £2,500, which I know most of you will know from what I've just seen your backgrounds are. And we can help with that. And it's the same process if it's a £2,500 mortgage loan, or whether it's a six-figure mainstream mortgage. We still have to undertake exactly the same processes as the high street lenders. And so what do we offer? We have a range of products, and we completely bespoke absolutely everything we do to the individual's clients' circumstances and their need. We broadly pitch them into three areas: first-time buyers, midlife borrowing, and later life lending. So to do the ones that probably we're not going to talk about much today, I'll just cover those briefly. For the first-time buyers, we like different, so niche mortgages for things like shared ownership. And so we've been working with lots of local authorities to provide the deposits for things like shared equity, so that a first-time buyer gets the deposit from us on a shared equity basis, about 20% of the property. They put in 5% themselves, and then they can go to a mainstream lender with the remaining 75% and benefit from the better rates that the mainstream lenders do for the lower loan to values. And we do shared ownerships, again, niche community land trust projects, so not the big large housing associations ones, although we do have a housing association one on our books. But normally we like to focus on the smaller ones to help people that are really in need in local communities, where the community has really come together to get these projects up and running. And we work with them right from the start, because it doesn't matter what properties are being built and the building aspects of it, if the mortgages aren't in place or the potential mortgages aren't in place, then the whole cycle and the model, the financial model of the project won't work. And unfortunately, then things have to be sold on the open market, which isn't the intention of these projects. So we work with lots of community land trusts and trying to help them from the beginning to make sure these processes work. We also have a range, what we class as midlife borrowers. Life never goes according to plan, and I think everybody would admit that. And sometimes you have to start again, whether that's through a relationship breakdown, a health issue that's forced you to have to reevaluate the job that you're doing, or anything like that. And we're here to offer blended finance to help people get up and running, and having to reevaluate things. And so we call it a start again mortgage, where one partner's maybe not being needed in the financial breakdown anymore, and so you're having to literally start again with your housing need. Right size, moving to a more appropriate property, whether that's because of a health need or whether that's because of a relationship breakdown, and also for home improvement loans. Regardless of your age, people still need a functioning house that's suitable for their need. And so for a variety of reasons, we can offer home improvement loans on anybody that's a homeowner. And again, all our products focus on a full financial review and various repayment types depending on the client's need. And then later life lending, or you'll see these bubbles occasionally come up with our characters. The bubbles are all actually feedback from clients, so we haven't made those up. That's genuine feedback, so they're just for you to read. Later life lending has been our bread and butter since we got our license in 2011. It's more vogue now for people to look at the later life sphere, but it certainly wasn't in 2011. In fact, we were market leaders in bringing about pension being included in the financial assessment. To be quite frank, a pension is guaranteed. Our salaries aren't. Nobody can guarantee that they're going to earn their money every month until their pension comes through. So my view was, why are we not using pensions in our financial assessment? So we were market leaders in doing that. Now we focus on three broad aspects of later life lending. The first one we call mortgage extension. In 2016, Citizens Advice Bureau brought out a report that showed that about 3.4 million people in the country had interest-only mortgages, and they were going to come to term over the next 10 years. 3.4 of the, apologies, 1.7 of those had no means of repaying it. Now, a lot of these would be those old endowment policies that we all sold in the 80s. And then again, relationship breakdown or financial mishap, and they maybe were put on hold or maybe cashed in, but suddenly there's no repayment aspect associated with that interest-only mortgages for the repayment. And of those 1.7 million that didn't have the means to repay, 795,000 people had no idea how they were going to stay in their home once their mortgage came to fruition. I don't like statistics like that, and we're a solutions-based organisation. And so we sat down and thought, what can we do about that? And so we brought about something we called the mortgage extension product. And it's designed for people that are in that situation, and we can offer blended finance. So part of it is interest only, part of it is repayment, depending on your financial circumstances and your affordability, so that you can maintain 100% ownership of your property and keep paying longer into retirement, rather than having to take out a shared equity type product and where you're losing out on ownership. We wanted people to have that security and have the control of maintaining ownership until they choose where they wish to live and what type of property they wish to live in. So it gives people more of an option. We also have our right size product for later life lending. A lot of people may own their property outright, they may realise that their children suddenly live 40, 50, 100 miles away, their adult children, and especially after pandemics like we've had, where isolation has been such an issue. People may want to go, hang on, I need to live closer to my family members and have that network of people that can help me with my shopping and things like that as we all get older, or just for company, so we feel less isolated, and may only need to borrow the cost of moving. And so it's not a large amount, but if that makes it harder in some cases for people to access finance. And so we have a mortgage which exactly the same terms of all our products. We don't differentiate like that at all and discriminate. We can offer that right size of a smaller amount for people that just need to move, and so they have choice, and again can maintain 100% ownership of their property and have options about what they want to do and stay control of their lives. The other product is a lot of people don't like moving and they want to stay in their own home, but homes need repair. They almost have their own heartbeat, I think we can all agree. And so whether it's a home improvement loan for just maintenance of windows and things like that, or whether it's an actual health need and now wet rooms required, or a stair lift, or a downstairs bathroom and living accommodation, as well as upstairs, then we can help with all of those sorts of things. And that goes within our home ownership brand. In fact, we've done things like have specialist chairs and things like that. We work with 16 local authorities currently, but we also work outside local authority partnerships to offer these loans, so that we can again offer full financial review that's part of it, and give various payment options, including no monthly repayments, so that people, according to their financial circumstance, can stay in control of their lives and get the housing need and adaptations they want. So what type of home improvement loans do we do? The vast majority you'll see are external works and damp and treatment and things like that. A lot of local authorities have different housing policies, and they may focus on category 1 hazards. Others have broader housing policies and they're more open. For example, the chair that I just mentioned, are more open to helping people with their need. And so we can do windows and roofs, we do boilers, we improve securities, we can do structural repairs, damp, electrics, complete makeovers, leasehold common parts. That's a very popular one in some of our urban areas. People may own their flat outright, but they suddenly get a bill for the main stairwell, and they have no means of paying that. In fact, our eldest client, who was 99, was in such scenario, and he said, well, I don't have £6,000. And so we helped him get his mortgage, so that the common parts of what were undertaken, and so he was able to get his common parts done and not have to worry about it. And I'm sure at 99 you can all agree you don't want to worry about a £6,000 bill of common parts. You've got life to enjoy. So you can be any age to actually apply for a mortgage. We don't have a limit on that, and we do what we can to help. We very much have a can-do attitude. Disabled facilities grants in the last few years have really taken a focus with our local authority partners. We do a lot of the top-up funding for those. Obviously, a lot of it's means tested, but what isn't within the grant, or what's over and above what grant is available, that's where we step in and can help out so that the essential works can get done and as quickly as possible. And we also, as I've mentioned before, we do specialist equipment for people with physical needs that need it and may not be able to afford it. And we also help professional and non-professional landlords. Obviously, there has to be an ethical point of view. We are a registered charity. But if there is a need for it, and we've certainly had, I called them accidental landlords. They've inherited their parents' property, for example. They don't really know what to do with it. And we've certainly had cases where local authority partners and us have worked with them to turn maybe that property into a couple of flats. And then the flats have social housing rentals in them so that the local authorities can justify their assistance in helping with that transfer over. And so what's the process? Well, we receive inquiries via local authorities, by occupational therapists, by word of mouth. You'll see at the end of this presentation that we have a TV advert out at the moment on Sky. We won a competition to get it, so we're all terribly excited. And I don't have Sky, but I'm hoping some of you may have seen it, because it's out the whole of this month. And that's how we get our inquiries. The team here answer those initial inquiries. If it's in an area with one of our local authority partners, then obviously we liaise completely with the local authority that they're happy that it's within their housing policy and for the need, etc., etc. If it's outside of our local authority partners, then we just have a phone conversation about what the need is, and a basic rough financial assessment over the phone, very, very sort of simple. And then we book a review where Nick will, well, these days it's through Zoom, the modern way of dealing, but in the past it was actually in the person's home, so that everybody felt really comfortable with the process. And we send out that loan illustration to the client, having discussed what they think the costs are and their need is. And then we do all the administration of the loan. That's basically what we do. And then the contractors, once that loan is secured again at Land Registry, the contractors commence their work, and when everybody's happy, we draw down the funding and they're dispersed to the contractor. And then after that, we look after the loan for the life of it, whether that's 30 years. We deal with all the administration points of it, and obviously when the life is redeemed, or when the property is sold, then we remove the charge and we recycle the capital, because that's one of the beauties about our fund, and I'm exceptionally proud of, is we have a 0% default rate. And I would be the first to say that's got absolutely nothing to do with me. It's got everything to do with my team and the wonderful customer service that they provide. As I said, the financial assessment's done in somebody's home or on Zoom. Sometimes it's in a coffee shop. We'd like people to have another family member with them, so that in case of vulnerability and they've got reassurance. And we go through everything in quite detail, so that they understand their budgeting. There are enormous financial literacy issues in this country. And we try and sort of use a traffic light system to highlight areas where they may wish to relook at it. One of my famous quotes on this is the fact we had a client that had to rent out 2 bedrooms and was sleeping in the conservatory because this person couldn't afford their mortgage. And when we did the financial assessment, it transpired they were spending more a month on their cigarettes than the actual mortgage. And you know, it's not for us to tell people what to do, but we can highlight that. And that person had no idea how much they were spending on cigarettes. So again, just simple things like that. Another one is direct debits and those insurances. People have pet insurance, kettle insurance, washing machine insurance that you're sold at the checkout. And you know, pets could have died 3 years ago and they're still paying their monthly direct debit for the pet insurance. So it's all sorts of things like that we go through. And we sort of refer to clients and give them a full report of absolutely everything, and hopefully can help with their budgeting in the future. And then we can offer them a loan based on this financial assessment about their affordability and what they can afford. Sometimes we say to them, well, you can afford this now, but actually it'd be really good that when you've paid off your car finance, lease finance in 3 years' time, you actually addressed this, and we'd book in a diary to contact them when that's up. So to say to them, right, now you've paid your car off, do you want to start thinking about paying down? Because if you're paying the interest, then this loan's not getting bigger. And so we always encourage people, where appropriate, to pay the interest so that the loan isn't building up. And so there's lots of added value to what we offer. happiness being the most important. We deal with people, lots of, when people need debt consolidation, etc. We have a lot of mental health issues that dip. And so we want to help that. And by signposting people to potential benefits that are available, and all these entitlements, and some people would be entitled to pension credit and they just didn't realise. So we try and highlight these things. We don't tell them where to go and what to do, but we can highlight that this may be something they wish to investigate and to contact the local authority to see if they can. So we can signpost people to other external organisations like Step Change we work very closely with, to help them if there's a real debt management need. And some people have, just made a few wrong turns and just need some help to come back to basics. And so that's what we try and point out in the report. The other added value for utilising us and getting their property updated is not just within the home and that person. Though a report done, I think it was in 2014, noted that every home improvement loan we did saved 24,000 off of NHS costs for not needing to reach out to other services. It prolongs independent living. People can come out of hospital sooner and go back into their own property, and the mental health and well-being of that is extraordinary. It improves the housing stock, not just that one property, but the whole street. And so it boosts the local economy because you're employing local contractors. So you've got various job creations, and it just improves the health and well-being of people, improves their finances, and hopefully we get some energy savings and efficiencies as well, which is reduce their monthly ongoing costs, which is fantastic. I've mentioned a couple of case studies that we've undertaken in the last few years, but I just thought of this other one that we did last year for a lady called Rose. She came to us a bit befuddled with all her finances. She'd actually inherited the property from her mother, who'd inherited the property from her mother, but she'd got herself into a bit of a mess financially. The house was in desperate need of repair, some structural repairs were needed, but also for some reason, somebody at some time had persuaded her, because she had a few mobility problems, to install a shower in her sitting room. So not the most obvious thing to do, and actually it wasn't very nice, and it meant she had the curtains closed all the time, and so her mental health was really being impacted upon. And so we went in there and we did a full financial review with her. We introduced her to an occupational therapist. She didn't know what they were. And we've left it with them. We've done the works, we've helped her, we've got it all secured. And that shower room downstairs in the sitting room is no longer there, thankfully. And she's now trying to get a DFG, and she's working with the occupational therapist to progress that, but she's exceptionally happy with the works, and it's really helped her enormously, which is wonderful. Right, I just jumped forwards and backwards because it starts straight away. So hopefully you are about to see our TV advert that very succinctly says what I've spent the last 10 minutes talking to you about. So this was a competition with Sky that, due to the lockdown, they wanted to give 100 organisations an opportunity to advertise on Sky TV that wouldn't, and obviously, as a charity, that wouldn't be something we looked at. But I applied for it, and we were awarded one of the slots. And so this is the advert, if it works.
Securing affordable lending in later life can be challenging. As a charity, Parity Trust offers later life lending with bespoke payment plans to suit your means. Whether improving your home to meet your needs or moving to a more suitable property, we work on the same side of the table as you. Contact us today to find out how we can help.
I'm hoping some of you will have seen that. So that's a rundown of what Parity does. They're my contact details and Nick contacts details there. But if you have any questions, I wasn't watching the chat. I left that to Nick. I can't focus on two things. So So I'll hand it back over to Paul, but happy to take any questions, or please reach out to us.
Yeah, there are a couple of questions just about minimum and maximum amounts.
Well, the minimum amount I think is technically £1,000, because anything below that you normally can get a grant. Though these days it's normally 2,500 for a boiler, which is normally the smallest thing that people approach us for. The maximum amount, it absolutely depends on what they're trying to do. I mean, we've had sort of six figures, £100,000 worth of two-story extensions needed for DFGs and all sorts of things like that. So it depends on the need, and whether we're working with a local authority that's with a DFG and all sorts of things. So that there isn't really a minimum and maximum amount, because it's entirely dependent on the client need.
Great. And Carol from Moving Together Devon was asking about a client who's just about to take out equity release for a second time. Is it too late for you to help? So I assume she should get in touch ASAP.
Please.
And I guess the other one is, if a local authority has some DFG money that they've got underspent and we're interested in developing a loan programme, have you got kind of examples of the sort of things you do at the moment?
Yes, well, we have, as I say, we have 16 local authorities we're currently partnered with, and we have funds. We both ends put funds into each loan, so it's not all local authority money. It's not all our money. So we work together. But any local authority money is in a ring-fenced account just for them, and it only comes out when it's one of their local authority loans. And then when the monies are recycled, their portion goes back into their account. So at any time, they can see how much money they've got in their pot for what they wish to do with them when clients come up. And we very often have local authorities that have underspends, and they just want to put it into these ring-fenced accounts so that they know that they've got the funding there for the next year's need. Because obviously none of us knew what we've just been through, but none of us know what's happening next with the need in people's homes. Now, people have just spent 3 months sitting in their sitting room, and suddenly that leak on the wall, which they could ignore because they could get out every day, they couldn't, and now they've decided it really does need addressing. So all sorts of reasons like that. So yes, and the funds are completely restricted to that local authority and only used with that local authority's approval.
Okay, and do they get a return on that as kind of the loans are repaid?
Well, they get the capital back. They don't get a return on it. They get the capital back, and of course, you know, if it, and when they choose to cease operating within the partnership, they'd get that capital sent back to them.
So it's kind of recirculated loan. Yeah, great. I think Nick's answered a few other questions in the chat as well. So yeah, if anybody's interested, they obviously get in touch, and be interested to see if some more local authorities join you.
Marvellous. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, SJ, and thank you, Nick. So just before we move on to the next guest, I just wanted to talk about DFG decisions and the kind of the decisions that people make every day of the week about different applications. Because we get questions usually about the more complicated ones pretty much every day, either through Facebook or through emails or phone calls. And I think in terms of making a robust decision, the answer is always follow the legislation. And for those that were on the webinar 2 or 3 months ago when we were talking about a case from Islington, that was a great example that if that local authority had followed the legislation, then I'm sure they wouldn't have ended up in court with a judicial review. So I know a lot of people, certainly during the lockdown period, have done our DFG basics training, but just as a reminder, the decision-making process for a DFG always follows these 4 steps. So first you have to decide if there's a disabled occupant. So that's a disabled person where mostly the owner is satisfied that they're going to stay there or have an intention to stay there for the next 5 years. Then you have to decide what the eligible works are, which I'll come back into a second. And then what the amount of grant is based on those eligible works. and then whether you will add any grant conditions onto your grant. So those are things like whether you include a land charge, or whether you include the condition to take back specialist equipment like stair lifts or hoists. But in terms of the eligible works, this is the process that that you need to follow for every single adaptation, every single application. And basically you take each purpose in turn. And if you look at the Act, there's a list of purposes for which a DFG must be approved. So things like getting access to the house, getting access to a toilet, getting access to a bath or shower, getting access to a wash basin, to cooking facilities, or to making the home safer. So you take each of those in turn and separately, and then you think, well, what are the relevant works to meet that purpose? So for example, the relevant works to get into and out of the house may be a ramp. And then you decide, are those works necessary and appropriate for the disabled person? And this is the main bit of the decision-making process. So looking at whether those relevant works, so in this case a ramp, is necessary and appropriate to meet the needs of the disabled person. If they are, then you judge whether it's reasonable and practicable to do that, but only taking into account the age and condition of the property. So reasonable and practicable is a very narrow decision-making, or very narrow decision as part of this process. The main bit is whether it's necessary and appropriate. But once you've been through necessary and appropriate, reasonable and practicable, what comes out at the end then become the eligible works that the grant can pay, or the grant can pay for. And then you take, if there are other purposes, you then go take that purpose. So if you've looked at a ramp and then somebody also needs access to a bath or a shower, then you look at that purpose separately. If somebody can't access the bath or the shower but still want a ramp, then because you're taking each purpose separately, then you can't not award a grant for a ramp just because they can't use the bath or the shower, for example. One of the other ones we get asked quite often is around overcrowding, and there's nothing specifically about overcrowding in the DFG legislation, so you have to follow this process through again. So one of the examples is where two siblings share a bedroom, and access to a room for sleeping is one of the purposes in the grant. So you may think, well, the relevant works would be to create a new bedroom. And then the test is that necessary and appropriate? But it has to be relevant to the needs of the disabled person. So probably, if the two siblings couldn't have shared a bedroom, if there wasn't a disability involved, then it wouldn't be related to the disability, so it wouldn't be necessary and appropriate. But if, for example, one of the siblings has challenging behaviours and gets up and hits his brother in the night, then to make it safer for the disabled person and his brother living with him, then it could be necessary and appropriate to build a second bedroom. So you follow that through, then reasonable and practical, just taking into account the age and condition of the property, and then that's what your eligible works are. So say for each purpose, you follow through, what are the relevant works you're proposing, and then the main question, is that necessary and appropriate? And then you should get to the right answer. And the thing is, if you follow this through and follow that process, then it's very unlikely that either a judge or the ombudsman is going to challenge your decision or come to or take it that you've made a wrong decision, as long as you follow that process through. So as I say, we'll have the DFG surgery at the end of the webinar today. So if you've got any questions on that or the cases, then please pop them into the Q&A box. But it would just be interesting to do another poll.
Poll time! Let's see what you think.
And I'm sure it'll appear in a second. There we go. So how confident are you on deciding about the eligible works? I've made this one anonymous, just in case you don't want to show your hand. But How confident are you in making a DFG decision on eligible work? So are you very confident, fairly confident, okay with straightforward cases, I don't fully understand the rules, or I don't have a clue? So where do you think you are on that scale? Okay. So that's about 2/3 of you are very or fairly confident in making decisions, and about 90% are confident with all, including straightforward cases. For anyone who is either new or kind of struggling, then we do have free DFG basics training that goes through all the legislation. We have a course that runs online every week. So if you go to the Foundation's website, you can see full details of that if you haven't attended already. And I have some more stuff coming later in the year around some guidance around making decisions on DFGs. Okay.
And now it's time for the guest.
So we've got our second presentation of the day, and pleased to welcome another of the Hunt clan, this time Shaun from Impey. Just take a second to fire his presentation up, and I will hand over to Shaun. Are you there, Shaun? Yeah, I can hear something moving. There we go.
You're in control of my video, Paul.
Okay, I've handed you control of the screen, and there we go. Hopefully your video will now appear.
Okay.
There, I can see you. There you go.
Excellent. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, I forgot there's no replies. It's great to be back to work, and it's great to be back working with Foundations. It's been almost 12 months, I think, since I last saw Paul in a venue somewhere across the UK. So it's great to be back. We've not stood still, you know, since the shutdown. You know, we've been locked away in our homes, but we've been eagerly working, very busy, to make sure that this industry is serviced with product advice, with technical advice and marketing. So before I go any further, I would like to show you this. If I can get the technology working. Have I got full control, Paul?
Should have, or if not, tell me when to click, and I'll yeah, you've got it now.
So I want to start with that because it's something that was done by our marketing department. It's got a bit of energy, it's got a bit of power, and basically, you know, it's a good way of coming back from lockdown with a show of innovation, which is what we are as a company. We do manufacture products for the healthcare market in showering. We are We're the kind of company. We're not just a company that makes products. We listen to feedback. We take feedback very seriously. We shape our products around the feedback we get from you guys when we're out on the road seeing you guys, but also from the installers. Everybody that used the product, we take all of the feedback that we get from these guys, and we innovate into new products for ease of use, for look. For ease of specification, and also, you know, we have very big guarantees on a lot of the products as well. So, you know, for people that are doing the maintenance on the products, we want those people to enjoy these products, and we want it to make their lives easy as well. So, I'm going to talk about wetrooms today, but if you know us as a company, you'll know we've got a lot of other things as well. Our main, we are the wetroom specialists. So. We do specialize in wetrooms, in walk-in showering. We also, we tick the box for everything as far as level access showering. So if you're governed by Part M regulations or the Equalities Act, level access showering is the only thing that you can put in there that will tick those boxes. So do be aware of that. I'm going to talk about level access quite a lot today, and I'm going to show you the product a little bit closer so you can get your head around how it works and how simple it is. Now, I do understand, talking to a lot of OTs over the last sort of 15 years, is there are sometimes a little bit of conflict between different parties and contractors, and we've spent quite a lot of time with the College of OTs myth busting problems with or technical problems or solutions with products that we have for things that happen, unforeseeable things that happen before an adaptation starts. So we get involved in all areas with this, really. We also do a lot of other things rather than wet rooms. We do low-level shower trays. We have a range that have anti-slip surfaces on it. And if anybody's got any questions on any of this while we're going along, like SJ, I can't do so many things at once, but I've got an incredible team behind me. I've got Sarah in marketing, so if you need any information, she's there at the touch of a button. And I've also got Toby, who runs the technical department back here at Impey, to answer any technical questions that you might have. So I'll prompt those at the end of each screen, so do feel free to do that. It won't put me under pressure because I've got my team looking at it in the background. So, wet rooms. We are the wet room specialist. We've been doing wet rooms for a long time. We started the business in the healthcare market doing wet rooms. So we've been doing this from about 1998. So we've had a lot of time to make products. We've had a lot of time to improve the products. We're actually on 3rd generation products now. So every time we get ideas, we get innovations, and we can put those into products to make it more robust, easier to use, easier to fit, but all round easier for everybody to use as a product. The low-level shower trays are an alternative to the level access. The reason that we have those is because sometimes you can't get level access showering into a certain floor. So a low-level option is sometimes the only practical thing that can be done. There are a lot of things that you can do to create level access, and we'll be quite happy to answer those questions if you have got certain situations where you're not sure if you can do it or not. And we're quite happy to look at your plans, look at your drawings to see what sizes and what configurations of half-height doors even would fit into that situation for those particular situations. We also do half-height shower doors as well, half-height carer screens. We can do those in every configuration that you could possibly think of. Those are at standard 750 high. They're a very light aluminium door with a polycarbonate glazing in them. They are also, there's a lot of bespoke options available. So if we've got a configuration that doesn't suit you, we could probably bespoke something that would make it work. You know, to suit the abilities of the person that's using the apparatus. Generally, the half-height doors are the go-to for these, but you know, there are a lot of cases where people don't need a carer every day to shower. And we are, we are the forefront of this industry with products. And we do see that there are other options available, which we do manufacture. And after talking to a lot of OTs over the last few years, I think we're all in the same boat and thinking that, these things don't need to look clinical to get a practical product. And we have a full range of those. And I don't know how well you can see the screen that we've got, but there's a couple of really nice images to the left of the presentation that show you what you can actually have. Now, all these products are practical bathing in disguise. All of them meet the DDA and Equalities Act regulations. Sometimes, glass screens can create a little bit more light, a little bit more vision. And it doesn't give you that kind of enclosed feel that a half-height screen with a shower curtain can create. So, we're trying to tick every box with the products that we create. And now I know that, now we know that a lot of the OTs think the same as us about innovative, nice-looking products in people's houses. We've got products that will suit the price range of the DFG as well. So, if you've got a client that does need a little bit of extra space in there, or they need a little bit of extra light, and a glass screen would suit that, do have a look at the product range that we have on there, because we're in the same mindset as you guys. It doesn't have to look clinical for it to be practical and to be sufficient for the person's abilities in that showering room. Now, we do understand that the shower room or the bathroom is one of the most dangerous places in the house because there are water involved in it, but there are a lot of things we can do. A good example is the slip resistance that we put into our low-level shower trays. The DIMB rating will allow the shower tray to be tipped to 18% before you lose traction with a wet foot. So they are they are a good alternative if you can't get level access into your solid floor. Also, we do find that with some shower trays, if you've got somebody who's got a non-slip flooring down there, the transition between walking onto a non-slip floor onto a shower tray can be a little bit tricky, because your client, especially someone who is possibly got Alzheimer's, they kind of get used to walking on these non-slip floors, and the transition between stepping onto a shower tray, they kind of get a lot of faith in what the non-slip flooring does. And if you step onto a wet shower tray, you're still kind of using that same mindset to step onto that shower tray, although a lot of the shower trays on the market don't have that slip resistance. So that was our thoughts behind the slip resistance that we put into some of the above ground shower trays. When we're dealing with level access, it's generally covered with the non-slip flooring anyway, so that transition isn't present in that situation. But not having that slip resistance in some of the shower trays that we have, it leaves a little bit of a gaping hole for safety in the bathroom, which if you look at the stats at accidents at home, they're very high around the bathroom, up to 75% if you go onto the HSE website. So support rails, grab rails, anything that we can supply to aid people to reduce that risk factor in that room. They're all available from us. We have kind of moved the goalposts a little bit. We've got some very nice looking rails that are as practical as the stuff that you would normally get. We have beefed up some of the rails that we supply to make sure that they're not just your standard white fluted grab rail that might be affected by direct sunlight or hot and cold or some shampoos or cleaning products that are used within the shower. So we've kind of beefed those up and made them a little bit more robust. And we've also moved away from the sort of round grip, fluted grip that tends to be a little bit uncomfortable if you need that to keep your stability within the showering room, as your hands get hot and cold and they react slightly different to different surfaces. So, if you do want some information on that, or you want to be able to check that out, drop us a line in the chat and we can send you some information on that. We have a full range of shower seats for every different kind of client that might need those. We have seats with no legs. We have seats that will fold up against the wall that create a lot of extra space. We've got products that are recycled plastic. Very, very simple and easy to deep clean. We got seats that have no finger traps. There's a full range of seats for every situation that are available. If you just want to drop us a line, and we can send you that information. We also have within our group of companies an accessories company as well. So we are available to supply practical accessories that don't look like the clinical accessories that we're kind of used to seeing in this market. They seem to be very popular at the moment. There is a huge market for independent living, and these accessories suit very well into everyday designs, into everyday bathroom designs. If anybody's got any questions, please feel free to drop us something onto the chat. Okay, so wet rooms. So this picture, if you can see this, is a build-up of how our wet room former works. Now, a lot of people might think that putting a wet room in is a very laborious kind of installation. It is very, very simple. So if you think of it, if you think of the wet room former that we supply as a replacement floorboard with a drainage hole in it, that's an easy way of explaining on how simple this is to put down. So really, in most cases, you really just need to treat this like a replacement floorboard with a drainage point that can then be covered with a non-slip vinyl flooring for complete protection. So when I say replacement floorboard, the former is 22 mil thick, the same as the standard floorboard that we put into our houses these days. And the support is very limited because of the robustness of the actual product itself. So the product is called Level Deck Easy Fit, and there it is in its entirety. Now, we designed this probably 10 years ago. You'll see there's a huge difference with this and a lot of the other formers that you see on the market. You'll see there's a 400 mil hole in the middle of it. Now that will accommodate what we call an eccentric drain plate. And what we mean by that is we have a 400 mil, let's say a plug, that will accommodate the drain, and we can change the position of that drain to allow an end user to not to stand on it if that's something that is necessary, but equally as importantly for the installer to be able to position that drain in the floor without any kind of obstacles. So if you can imagine the muddle that you'd see under the floor when you pull the floorboards up, you never know what you're going to get from there. If there's very, very limited space in there because of pipe works, double joists, or previous work that's gone on, you've got the option to spin that all the way around that 400 mil hole and to gain a drainage position that's going to suit you to ensure that you can get that drain in there, or just so that you can get the pipe work to where you need it to go as for your exit strategy. Now the Level Deck former, as I said, is 22 mil thick. It's made from a very, very strong GRP. Now that strength is gained from the process of how it's made. The process is called sheet molded compound. What that does, it enables us to bond the GRP together with a right amount of heat, but more importantly with 150 ton of pressure. That gives it the strongest thing that you'll ever put into the floor. So it's very strong, it's very lightweight, but it's also very durable. You can trim it with a handsaw if you needed to cut it down to customize the area that you're going to put it into. The rotating waste plate, base plate for the waste is probably the most important feature for installation, and that can save up to half a day of extra support underneath, moving pipe work, but not just time, but money as well. So if you've got gas pipes under there, you'd need to get someone who's gas safe or gas wise. You know, that's extra cost. If you had to get an electrician in to move electrics that are under there, that's another initial cost as well. So that's that clever little design of being able to spin that waste all the way around that circle. is priceless to the installer. But also it's it's going to save money on that installation. So it's going to save money on the DFG as well, enabling to free up money for other stuff. So it's trimmable. It's trimmable with a handsaw. Why would you cut it down? Maybe you've got an area that's a little bit small. Maybe you've got an abundance of these formers, and one of them is a little bit too big. Maybe you've got to cut a stack pipe into the corner. Maybe you've got slightly out of square walls. Maybe there's a utility or a bulkhead or anything like that in there that might mean that you've got to cut it down. So every one of those formers has got slightly different trim. The bigger they are, the more trim that you can get. All of that information is available on a spec sheet if you need that. If you are a specifier and you need these sizes, and you need all the waist positions and you need trim marks, you can drop the guys a quick message, and they can put you in the right direction for a spec sheet so you can specify this. So we have 12 standard sizes available, but as I say, they're not standard. They are standard to us. As a manufacturer, because that's how we make them, but they can all be manipulated into anything that you might need to make that work in the situation that you have. So you can see on that slide there are a lot of different sizes. The most common size that we see in healthcare is 13x8. The most common that we see in our retail market is 12x9, which has always been the same. The most practical sizes in healthcare really are the 1200x1200 and the 15x1200. Now that enables you to have a decent bit of turning space in the room. There is only a limited dip in that tray. Now a lot of people would assume that there's a big dip in there. It's got a 1 in 40 gradient. So if you put a straight edge across the top, you get about a 15mm drop over that surface area. So it's enough to take up to 30+ litres of water away per minute, which is more than enough, but not enough for someone to get a day chair or a wheelchair stuck in there where they couldn't get it out. So we would normally say the bigger wet room area that you have, the easier it is to contain the water, and the less chance you would need to contain that water with half-height doors if you needed complete access for something like a shower bed. So there are a completely full range of different sizes for that, but as I say, they can all be trimmed and adjusted down on site by the installer with a handsaw. So here's a few schematic drawings of the movement in the eccentric drain plate. Now there are slight alternatives to this. But this is made in the UK. This is the most robust former that you will get in the UK. And out of all the formers in the UK, pretty much all of them have got a fixed waist position. We are seeing an alternative, but it doesn't give you as much option as having a complete circle in there. Because it means that we can position that waist all the way around that circle rather than having it in slightly different stages where it kind of reduces the positions down to 3 or 4 usable positions. So with this, we're able to position this waist anywhere that you need to within that 400mm hull. Okay, now I want to play a video for you. I'm going to talk you through this one. Now, this is Toby, who's on the end of the technical side of the chat line. He's installing one of these easy fits. And you can see it's been put in nicely. We'll get a shot in a minute so you can see what he's doing. So there's the eccentric drain plate. There's nothing flimsy about that at all. We've got a 40 stone weight limit on the whole of this, and that includes that eccentric drain plate as well. Now you see that it's hatched underneath. Now that's done there for strength. It's not solid, so it's a little bit lighter than it used to be. But the hatched area will also allow it to be bedded down onto a concrete floor, and the hatched area will allow the bedding to go up underneath it to give you a solid bed and a full bed of adhesive that'll enable it to be stuck down onto a concrete floor. Now you see the smooth part under there. You could actually trim these formers all the way down to the smooth part of the underside of the former. You can see it's very, very rigid around the outside edges. And although Toby is a very strong guy, you can see he picked it up with one arm. So you can see how light it is. Okay, so you can see he's putting it into the floor. He's offering it up. He's making sure that the floor's level. For installation, that's one of the most important things of any level access. It needs to be in level. The second most important thing is the rest of the floor needs to be level, or have a positive gradient running towards the former itself to increase that usable area. Now you can see there's a few obstacles going on under the floor there. There's a few gas pipes that we can't move. So Toby's going to demonstrate there where the eccentric drain plate can be moved to avoid the unforeseen things going on under the floor, which, as I said earlier, you can't see those things until you actually take that floor up. So there's no way that you can work that out. So having that product on hand is going to save you a lot of time, a lot of money. So you can see the gas pipes, we need to avoid those. And there's the gap that we need to be able to get the 100 mil of the waste pipe underneath. Now you'll also see he's cutting it with a handsaw. Now that's quite important. If you can't take a diamond tip angle grinder into somebody's house because of noise, because of dust, and you don't want to walk down 30 stories to get to the van, to cut it out the van, with a simple handsaw, you can cut it with a reduced amount of mess that can be quite easily hoovered up. Now you can see there's a few extra supports gone into the way that this is being installed. Now we call those noggins down here. If we're in Scotland, they call them dwangs. But if I say support, that's a word that everybody can get their head around. That needs to be done all the way around the outside edges and potentially to close up any gaps smaller than 4/15 center. Now you see in the video there, the trap splits into two parts. Now that enables you to be able to test that trap for water tightness to ensure that you don't go any further if that trap's not supporting the water properly and it's not draining the water away without any leaks. So that gives you a stand back and check. So for all those people that say that wetrooms leak, that's the bit that will give you the option to stand back and check to make sure you're not going to leak before you go ahead and put anything permanent down on top. So the last part of this video is the top part of the waste going in. You can see Toby's now putting in the seal that will seal the top part in, and just a few simple screws will connect that from the top. So you can actually get the waste in, you can make sure it's going to work, you can test it, you can wet test it before the guy comes in and does the vinyl. Now the last thing you'll see Toby put in here in a second is a little black disc. Now that little black disc is left in there till the vinyl guys come along, and the vinyl guys come and cover it all with the vinyl. They then locate that little disc and they cut around the inside perimeter of that so it's got a perfect hole ready for them to put the clamp back in and the cap. So that's a speedy explanation of really what this product does. That video is actually available on our website if you need to see that. I'm sure we can send you a link if you wanted a close look at it. Now this page shows you a few of the drainage options that we have with this product. You'll see that the round cap on there means that it's for vinyl. So when I say a couple of options, the standard option is the one that says 200 mil wide above it. Now that has got a quarter turn cap on the top so that you can take the insides out to make sure that you can clean it. The one that's on the left-hand side with a 75 mil water seal is really designed for commercial drainage and multiple use. So, you know, if there's a converted nursing home or something like that, where you've got showers that are back to back and it needs a slightly bigger drainage system, the 75 mil water seal will tick that box as well. So the one that you see that's got the light grey top to it, it's a slim line. Now that's a very, very slim trap. So if you are limited for depth to be able to get gravity waste in there, and pump is not an option, we have a waste that will keep the whole installation down to 69 mil, including the trap. So that is a very good option for, let's say, a depth of screed that isn't penetrable within a certain depth. Or if you've got a very cluttered floor space going on under the floor. Now the option to the far right is a pumped option. Now, that pumped option will enable anybody in any situation to have a wet room. So if you're ever in any conflict with your contractors and they're saying, we physically can't fit that, that wet room into the situation, please do get them to give us a call within the technical department or drop us an email, explain what they're trying to do, and we'll come up with a solution for it. But never take no for an answer. There are a lot of solutions that we've come up with to ensure that anybody can put wet rooms in, because we know how important it is to be able to tick the box of Part M regs and the Equalities Act for level access. Again, any questions on drainage, please drop us a question.
Okay. Just one minute, Shaun, we're near the end.
Okay, I've got a couple of slides I just wanted to share with you, and this is the fun part of it. Now, this is a couple of case studies that we've done in the past. This one you might have seen on TV. This is the DIY SOS Big Build. Now, this was a fun one, as they always are. You know, we got some good exposure from this one, but it was really fun to make sure that the end result was as good as what we wanted it to be. And we also have another one here. Now, this was a really good one and a very important one. As you can see, little Joan is, you know, he's transported around the house with hoists. You know, all the doors are wide enough for his life chair and his moving chairs and stuff. And we managed to get involved in that as well, which is always good. And really for all of us, everybody who's involved in Impey, this is the bit that makes you or allows you to go home with a smile. Okay, thanks for your time. Thanks for having us, Paul. If you have any questions, Paul, if you've got any questions there that you want to hit with us.
I think Sarah's answered them all as you've been going along, and lots of links in the chat box if anyone wants to follow up on extra information, videos or product guides.
Excellent. So that goes to show that teamwork is the key.
Absolutely. Thanks, Shaun.
Thanks, Paul. All the best.
Thank you. Great. So I know a few of you mentioned before that you were relatively new to the world of DFG. If you are, I would point you towards our DFG Champions Facebook group. We now have over 1,000 members from all over the country. And one of the new features that are on there that you may be interested in is you can sign up to be a mentor if you're an old hand and very experienced, or a mentee if you could use some support from somebody. It's a new feature. If you go into the Facebook group, at the top of the page, you've got a section around mentorship. So if you want to be a mentor or a mentee, if you're an existing member, just go in there. And if you're not an existing member, go to facebook.com/group/DFG Champions, answer a couple of questions, and we'll let you in.
And now it's time for the guest.
So last but not least, I'm very pleased to welcome Dr. Sukumar from University of Bath, who's done some research on the impact on well-being of cold homes, and also the impact of overheating homes in the summer. So hopefully you're there, and I will, if I stop my share, then I'll allow you to share your screen and take us through it.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Paul. I'm just about to start the share here. Hope everyone can hear me.
Yep, loud and clear.
Brilliant. Okay, so let's get cracking. So firstly, I just want to thank Paul and Foundations UK for inviting me to speak today. So the title of this presentation is Thermal Comfort, Heating and Health in an Aging Population. If any of you are on Twitter, you can find me at SUKNAT, the first three letters of my first and last name, which I assure you, it really rolls off your tongue, my name, after, you know, just hours and hours of practice. So no problem there. I'm based at the University of Bath, and the research I'm about to present was done primarily by Caroline Hughes, who's now Dr. Caroline Hughes under my supervision for her doctoral work, who now has moved on from the university and works for Homes England as a GEM fellow, I think. So just to give you a very brief overview of the presentation, I'm going to go over a little bit of background, bring up the research questions we wanted to answer, talk about the study, and then finally the results and the outcomes. Before I do that, just want to say I'm really an environmental design specialist. I'm not really a specialist on you know, home improvement agencies or health and aging. This is just something that falls within the broader remit of looking at decarbonizing the emissions from buildings. So within that, there's a key focus on heating, health, and comfort. And so that's the reason I'm in this space. The other thing I have to apologize for is, unlike my worthy previous presenters, co-presenters, I have no fancy videos. So I have to apologize for that. It's going to be, unfortunately, video free. But even more apologetically, I have to say that there's going to be some graphs and equations. So if you're faint-hearted when it comes to a bit of scientific presentation, you know, I'll try and make it as gentle as I possibly can. And I'll try to explain everything as easily as I can do. And finally, because Caroline is not here with us today, she's busy at work, I'll try and take question and answers at the end. If I could request Paul to perhaps keep an eye on the chat board if possible, I'll be delighted to take question and answers at the end. Okay, well, having said that, on to the background. I'm aware I'm preaching a little bit to the choir here, but just in case, and if you weren't aware, we are an aging population. And you can see that the median age of the UK population has increased by 6 years between 1970s and sort of the mid-2000s, and is projected to continue increasing. And it's not just the UK, all over the developed world, and places like Japan are seeing even steeper statistics on the aging population. So this is something that is quite cross-cutting in terms of healthcare provision, changes in economic strategies, and so on. But from my point of view, the key issue is to do with thermal stress, because the elderly are said to be at greater risk from thermal stress. And I'm sure some of you might be aware of these statistics. There's an average of 28,000 odd excess winter deaths in the UK every year. And 90 odd % of these are in people aged over 65. It's an odd thing, there's used the statistic of over 65s as the elderly. I mean, it's used quite commonly, but it's worth remembering, I think, that 65 is not really that old anymore. But, you know, if you move this to 75 and above, it's about 80%. So, you know, you're really, the elderly are contributing substantially to the excess winter death rate. Now, of these, about 30% are said to be due to cold homes. Again, statistics are actually quite hard to come by, but these are all estimates. And it's worth remembering the prominence that things like road fatalities and things get in the press. You know, this is 4 times the rate of road fatalities each year. So this is really quite a substantial issue. And it's not just the cold, it's also the heat. In the European heat wave of 2003, after a lot of work, there's been studies. In fact, that number, I think, has now doubled in a recent publication. It's more like 70,000 excess deaths. But numbers are actually quite hard to get hold of in this area. But we know that these deaths have occurred, and that, again, they primarily affect the elderly. And so the conflict, as many of you know, is the fact that many homes that are occupied by the elderly, even some that are relatively well off, are actually poorly heated and ventilated. But at the other end, there's a desire to stay longer and lead a healthier life in one's own home. And so how do you actually balance out these conflicting pulls? In addition, it's quite common for older people to spend greater amounts of time in their home. So if you're 65 and plus, it's 85% of your time at home. If you're 85 and over, it's almost 100% of your time at home. So your mobility is reduced, and obvious causes of declining health or financial reasons, loss of companionship, and so on. But the main outcome is that you end up with a sedentary lifestyle. And a sedentary lifestyle tends to imply to people like me, when you talk about design work, it tends to imply higher internal temperatures because your body is producing less heat of its own, and therefore the extra heat has to be supplied from your indoor environment. And often it might be higher temperatures for longer periods, and therefore there's a concern that this is actually acquiring more heating energy, and therefore pushing people into greater fuel poverty. And in some cases, there have been anecdotal reports about people having to choose between food and heating in the sort of drive to achieve satisfactory internal temperatures. And but it's probably more common to not heat certain rooms and manage. And you will see this word coming up again later on this presentation, the word manage. And consequently, roughly 30% of those in fuel poverty are actually aged in this sort of class of 65 plus, which I've already noted is a slightly strange definition of the elderly. And this has a well-known impact on health. There's a strong link between housing quality and health. And there's issues around cardio and cerebrovascular problems, or suppression of the immune system, which, as we know with COVID, is actually the key reason people die due to COVID. In fact, I had a plumber in just earlier today, and he lost his sister, age 72, due to COVID, partly as a mix of some of these reasons, and she was a long-term sufferer of respiratory conditions. I think it was asthma. So, and of course, things like rheumatism and arthritis. And there is some research to say that for every degree that the outdoor air temperature falls below 5 Celsius, there can be as much as a 20%, roughly 20% increase in the number of consultations for the elderly with respiratory problems. And I've just underlined the phrase "as much as" because it doesn't actually tell you very much about how common 19% is. And this again highlights the issue about the general lack of data in this area about exactly what is happening, partly because it's actually quite hard to study. And the health impacts are reasonably well known. These are not particularly to do with the elderly. These are more for the general population. When you have air temperatures below 16 Celsius, there's a diminished resistance to respiratory infections. If your surface temperatures, the indoor surface temperatures within your home are below 17 Celsius, that's what encourages mold growth. It's not the air temperature, it's the surface temperature. And naturally, the more mold growth you have, there's the risk of increased allergies and other problems. And there seems to be some association between temperatures and high blood pressure and high body mass index, which brings its own problems. And low body mass index above certain temperatures. I would say these three in the middle are less well understood than others, but there's some links down there at the bottom if you guys want to follow them up. And above 26, as I said, during heat wave type conditions, increased mortality is observed. So why are the elderly most at risk? Mainly because as you age, your ability to maintain and regulate core temperature decreases. There's actually two types of temperatures we have in the body. There's the surface temperature and the core temperature. It's the core temperature that is the most critical in terms of making sure you're healthy. And the reason you can't do this as you get older is because of a lowered metabolic rate and a slower vasoconstriction rate, which is essentially how your the sweat glands and things in your skin constrict and respond to external stimuli. And the other thing that happens is that you're less likely to be able to recognize temperature changes. And if you're less likely to recognize temperature changes, because your skin and your body is essentially a most delicate sensor, and we're very, very good at recognizing these things during most of our healthy adult lives, except when you get older. And when you're less likely to make to recognize these issues, you're going to find it hard to make the necessary changes to protect your health. So what is recommended? What do the experts say? There's a health-based recommendation This is by no means comprehensive, but there are other recommendations out there. These are probably the most well-known. There's the World Health Organization recommendation for the general population for all rooms in homes to be 18 Celsius at least. These are minimum temperatures. And the World Health Organization says that if you've got elderly occupants, it should be between 20 and 21. And till about 2014, the Cold Weather Plan and Age UK adopted a modified version of this, where it's at 18 Celsius for bedrooms and 20 to 21 in living rooms. And then there was a review by Public Health England, which resulted in a change to the Cold Weather Plan based on lack of evidence for better health outcomes with higher temperatures, and therefore it's moved to 18 Celsius for all rooms. So that's the current standard from Public Health England. On the maximum temperature side, it's a bit hard to find clear guidelines. However, SIPSE, which is the Chartered Institution of Building Services Engineers, released their technical memorandum 59, TM59. And what they've said is they've actually got two rules for homes. And again, these are not fine-tuned to the elderly. These are just general rules. One is an upper limit based on the current external temperature. It's a slightly complicated thing, and I try to simplify it. Essentially, that the upper limit of the indoor temperature is linked to the current outdoor temperature. So I'm in Bath now, and it's about nice 21 Celsius. So the upper limit that I'm going to find acceptable is different than if the external temperature was 30 Celsius. So it recognizes that there is a bit of adaptation as the external temperature changes. And that applies to rooms occupied during the daytime, basically, and bedrooms 24 hours. And the second rule is an absolute upper limit of 26 Celsius applicable only to bedrooms for no more than 1% of occupied hours. And there are other rules, for example, they're suggested by Public Health England on less than 26 Celsius for care homes, which we've interpreted to apply more broadly to the elderly. That's just the health-based recommendations, but there are also comfort-based recommendations, and there are ISO standards guiding these when you put together design recommendations. There's one standard that says it should be between 22 and 24 Celsius no matter what time of the year. And there's another standard, the ISO 16798, which is linked to the external temperature. So the TRM in that equation that you're seeing is the external temperature, and the TC is the indoor comfort temperature. And you can see there's a direct relationship between the external and the internal temperature. And in fact, that is the exact equation that the SIPSE recommendation, the 1A recommendation at the top right of this presentation, or of the slide, is actually using. So sorry if this is complicated, but hopefully it'll get a bit easier to follow as you see the graphs. Okay, having given all of these recommendations, what we don't know is how do elderly people actually heat their homes? How does this vary across different demographics? What temperatures do they actually prefer? As in, are the temperatures achieved in their homes the ones that they desired, or would they desire different temperatures? And what potentially is the impact on health? And then obviously what happens during summer. And summer is important because as climate change happens, you're going to get milder winters and more extreme summers. And the sorts of summers we experienced 2 years ago, 2018 summer, which was a heat wave summer, are going to become more and more frequent. So you get these sudden increases in external temperatures, which, as I said, in the case of 2003, the European heat wave of 2003, really exacerbates the summer death rate. Okay, so on to the study design. We wanted to recruit anyone over the age of 65, except in case of really severe disabilities, either mental disability or maybe a stroke or injury that prevented them from speaking, or if they were bedridden or wheelchair bound. So that means, apart from the most sort of extreme conditions, we got lots of people with, say, chronic problems or other comorbidities, but they were very much part of the study. And we recruited 43 homes in the Bath area and roughly 60 people within that set, and an average age of about 76, with a good spread. So we had some really quite old people in this as well. And what we wanted to do was to actually do a longitudinal study. It's more common in this area to do cross-sectional studies, but in fact, there's very few studies looking purely at the elderly, but what studies there are primarily cross-sectional. So we actually wanted to follow the same sort of people over 2 winters and 2 summers. Unfortunately, as the study progressed, the number of people continuing to stay in the study fell, either because they'd shifted homes, or some of them had passed away, or they'd withdrawn for other reasons. And what we did was we put 3 temperature sensors in 3 locations, in living rooms, bedrooms, and 1 connected to the main radiator. And you can see a picture of this on the right. These sensors are really quite unobtrusive, and we put them through a battery of tests to make sure that they were standards compliant and we could get reliable and high quality data out of these. And we also did ISO compliant measurements. The little sensors in the pictures are not ISO compliant. They're very high quality, within ½ degree accuracy. But then we did the ISO compliant measurement as a sort of transfer survey to give ourselves confidence that the unobtrusive kit was working well. And in addition to all of that, every month these participants were asked to undertake a survey on thermal comfort and health. And these are standardized surveys from the World Health Organization or from Thermal Comfort Research, very well calibrated and highly standardized survey metrics. And so this is just to sort of give you a timeline of what we did: winter 2016, winter 2017, summer 2017, and summer 2018. The reason summer 2018 is in that orange color is just to remind you that that was actually a heat wave year. So we got this extraordinary opportunity to study the elderly during heat wave conditions. So moving on to the results. I should just say that these results have been published in 3 papers. This is the first of those 3 papers, although it wasn't the first paper to actually come out. The first paper to come out was later, and that's how Paul and I got talking. And Paul suggested you guys might be interested in some of the work we're doing. So this is the major paper, shall I say, and it looks at all of these results from the winter. And this is a graph of data. On the left-hand side graph is bedrooms, the right-hand side is living rooms. These dark gray bands are the WHO recommendations for the elderly. It's 20 to 21 Celsius. The light gray band at the bottom, that's the WHO recommendation for the general population. But remember, this is also now the cold weather plan recommendation for all homes, including those of the elderly. And these black lines are the average temperatures across both winters for all the homes in our study. And you can see both the black lines are just above, in the case of the bedrooms, just above the minimum recommendation, and the case of the living rooms, say about 19 degrees, I think, from memory. So none of these homes on average are meeting the WHO recommendation for 20 to 21, but all of them on average are meeting the 18 Celsius recommendation. But the key thing to note is that if you look at the absolute leftmost data point on the left-hand graph and the absolute rightmost data point on the right-hand graph, that's a 12 degrees Celsius disparity in mean temperatures. And it's quite extraordinary to think that there's this demographic living in highly disparate indoor environmental conditions. So the main takeaway is that the average home does not meet the WHO standard, but it does meet the Cold Weather Plan 2018 requirements. I'll be talking about some of these homes a little bit more in detail shortly. Anyway, the other thing is we actually find that the most common heating pattern is twice daily. On the y-axis of this graph, if you see it goes 0, 2, 4, 6, that's the number of times the radiator has come on across these 2 winters. And we can see that the most common pattern is for it to come on twice a day throughout the winter period. And if you look at how long these the heating system was on, this is a graph, but I'm just going to try and simplify it for you. You've got a group of homes here whose most common heating length is between 2 to 5 hours. And then you've got another group here with much longer heating periods. But between this graph and the one before, what we learn is that the assumption of long heating periods for the elderly is more often wrong than it is right. And that's actually very interesting for people, you know, for policymakers, and in fact, for you guys as caseworkers and experts in making amendments to the properties, to understand how people are actually operating their homes and what impact this might have. Next is, as I told you earlier, we're actually asking people how they feel about their indoor environmental conditions, and we wanted to compare that against the standard recommended conditions. So just to explain what this graph is, I've put these little circles in blue, green, and red. Whenever any part of this graph touches the blue, that means people are saying they're very cold. But what you're really looking for is people to be in the green slot, as in answering neither hot nor cold when you take a survey. And obviously, oops, I think I've got these the other way around. I apologize. That -3 should have been very cold. I just realized that doesn't make any sense. The -3 is very cold. The +3 is very hot. Apologize for that. But essentially, if you're voting 0, you're voting neutral and comfortable. And what we find is, if you look at the right-hand side figure, these are called violin plots, by the way. The right-hand side figure, there's a little dashed line here. That is the data from our survey. So when we ask people, how actually are you feeling at this point in time? The vast majority of time, people are actually voting that a feeling of comfort, whereas the standard on the left is suggesting that people are uncomfortable, that they should actually be feeling cold under these conditions. So there's a very big discrepancy between what the ISO standard thinks is comfortable and what people actually find comfortable within this demographic. And that's actually a very, very interesting result. Lastly, I promise you, this is, I think, the most complicated graph you're going to see, and it's certainly the most complicated graph I've ever constructed in my life. So I'm going to try and simplify this for you, but just to put you back on familiar territory, those are those WHO recommended temperatures, those gray bands that are going from left to right across your screen are the WHO recommended temperatures, the bottom one being the 18 Celsius and the top one being the 20 to 21 Celsius, right? So you've got a reference point there. Then these black dots are the monthly mean, the monthly average outdoor temperatures. And you can see these are all results from winter. It goes from 2016 December all the way to 2018 March. And you can see that there were only 3 months where the average monthly temperature fell below 5 Celsius. Okay. The boxes that you're seeing are the bedrooms in red and the living rooms in blue. So you can compare what's happening in the bedrooms and living rooms. You can generally see that the bedrooms are lower temperatures than the living rooms, but not substantially lower. And then these letters that are littered all over the graph, every letter is a single point in the survey asking the respondent if they had to access any kind of healthcare. And these are visits for GPs, inpatient, outpatient, social care, accident emergency, any kind of visit. And it's split by the type of health outcome. So it's arthritic A, circulatory C, respiratory R, other is O, and the small n's are none. And what you will see is that most of the time, people are not actually accessing healthcare. The height of these letters is related to the indoor temperature in the home at the time. So you, I don't know if you can see my mouse. No, you can't see my mouse, but if I just point you towards the middle of this, if you look at the 2017 March point on the x-axis and move your eye upwards, you'll see there's lots of N's at the bottom end of that graph there. That means, and if you look at the y-axis, that's actually 15 Celsius. So there's lots of people experiencing an average, an instantaneous temperature of 15 Celsius, but not actually having to undertake a visit, a healthcare visit. So on this basis, our conclusion, looking at just our sample, was that there was no clear association between cold temperatures and healthcare visits. But please bear in mind that this is a relatively small sample, and therefore it's somewhat unsurprising, I would say, that we didn't see that. But it's also reassuring that if you're reasonably healthy as an elderly person, the sorts of temperatures we're seeing here are not, as far as we can make out, are not having a huge impact on your health. So that's kind of reassuring and interesting. But what we did was, in the second paper, which is how Paul and I actually got talking in the first instance, it's called The Older I Get, the Colder I Get. And this is looking at more qualitatively people's perspectives in coping under these conditions. So we did something called thematic analysis, and the summary is luckily available for you to read as a blog post on the Foundations UK website, and I put the link up there. You can do a search. The title of the blog post is In Their Depth. I apologize for another graph once again, but I promise you this is going to be easy. On the left-hand side, there's a black box, and those are all the homes with the coldest temperatures in winter 1. And you can see some of these homes are actually getting all the way down, average temperatures of, say, 13 degrees, minimum temperatures of 12 degrees indoor during the winter. So really quite extreme conditions. So any house that was below 18 Celsius was invited to participate in this. And we kind of did some more in-depth sort of research, talking to them and trying to understand what it was that they were facing. And this graph here on the bottom left is just trying to give you an idea that these are not all homes that are spending less money on heating. If you look at the leftmost home, the one that's labeled Dorothy, these are all made up names, by the way. Each box on this x-axis is a single person in their home. If you look at the leftmost one that's labeled Dorothy, whose average temperature is 12.5 Celsius, they're actually heating their homes for about 6 to 8 hours a day. And that's quite extraordinary, that you're spending a lot of money on heating and still not being able to achieve reasonable indoor temperatures. And it really tells you the impact of poor insulation and poor quality housing on indoor temperatures. And you can see that this is the results are totally mixed. Obviously, there are some homes not heating for very long periods, as in homes 3, 4, and 5 in this graph, not heating for very long. So unsurprising that they don't get very high temperatures. And what did we find is this idea of making do and mend, or stoicism. And these are quotes from our qualitative research, and there are many, many more quotes in the paper. This particular paper is closed access, I'm afraid. I just try to make it open access. It's closed access, but there is a copy on ResearchGate if you want it, or if you ping me, I can find a copy to send you. There's lots of interesting quotes, and I've just picked out a few to show you, and these are also captured in that blog post. And what they're saying is, you know, it's this idea of not wanting to seem dependent on other people, not wanting to complain, just kind of putting up with it and trying to manage with the conditions they've got. Or, you know, feeling out of depth. So if, you know, we asked, well, why don't you switch tariffs if you're finding it expensive to heat? Well, it's quite hard to navigate and try to understand whether you've actually got a better deal than before or not. So having access to simplified advice would really, really help some of these people improve their indoor temperatures and hopefully improve their health outcomes. And this feeling of insecurity and inferiority is also pervasive throughout this sample. And finally, the idea of disempowerment. You know, some of the ideas we have within the research space, sometimes, you know, it's just about, well, maybe if it's automated, it's better. You know, we could just put in an automated heating system. So we, you know, you can see this person is clearly aware of something called Hive, which is, I think it's a British gas product. They say, no, we don't like it. You know, this idea of not having active control over your indoor environment. And it's quite interesting that the elderly are expressing very similar views to what we know to be true of the general population. There's lots of buildings where these highly automated ventilation systems, you know, with these clever things where the windows open and shut, dependent on the external and internal conditions, and then they break, and you know, people don't like them because actually they feel disempowered. And it's fantastic to see that the elderly are actually very much in line with that broader experience. The final piece of work I want to show is on that overheating issue, which is the performance during summer. This is the third paper that was published. This is also closed access, but once again, if you want a copy, we can get it to you. But I'm summarizing the main results here anyway. Just to give you an idea of what we're talking about in terms of external temperatures, that there is the 2017 data, those dots. Sorry for the quality of the dots. I couldn't find a way of improving them. But essentially every dot is either the southeast, the southwest, or the UK. And you'll see that the UK one is at the bottom, above that is southwest, and above that is the southeast. And the bands are showing a single standard deviation. That is the most typical range observed for summer conditions. And you can see that 2017 was within the bands for all three areas, for all three definitions. So southeast, southwest, or the UK, 2017 was very, very typical summer. You look at 2018, however, that dot for the southeast is well outside that green band. Similarly, the dot for the southwest, which is harder to read on the screen, but I can assure you it's well outside the standard deviation. And similarly for the UK. And in fact, we now know that 2018 was, I think, the fourth hottest year since records began. So it was a really, really quite a warm year. And you can see the bottom graph showing you the daily temperature profile difference. This is the average temperatures across these two periods. I do want to take 10 seconds just to point out, every time I say average, please do remember that half the data are below that number and half the data are above that number. So, you know, sometimes you see an average increase of 2 Celsius and you think, well, actually, that doesn't sound like a lot. But actually, that's only the average. And there's a whole lot of data that's above or indeed below that number. Okay, so here are the results for summer. The top graph is 2017 and the bottom graph is 2018. And you can see there are fewer homes in the bottom graph. And the 2017 average was 21.2 Celsius in summer. And the 2018 average across the subset of these homes is actually 23. So the difference on average is about 2 Celsius. But if you look carefully, you'll see that some of these temperatures are really quite extreme. And in fact, I can show you this in a little bit more detail. Don't be scared by this graph. On the y-axis is just the proportion of time that a given temperature, that a house is above a given temperature, right? And on the bottom, on the x-axis are the temperatures. In fact, if you just look at this, in 2017, very few of the homes had temperatures above 26 Celsius. Whereas by the time you get to 2018, many more homes had moved into that, to the right of this graph, as in displaying more extreme temperatures. And 30 Celsius was sort of, you know, not common, but also more likely to occur in 2018 than in 2017. And that's in living rooms, similarly for bedrooms at the bottom. But I just want to point out this bottom graph here with this line, with this very straight line. That's a home whose, that's a room, a bedroom whose temperature doesn't change a huge amount. And that's because it's a basement flat with very low solar gains and high thermal mass. In fact, if you look carefully, you'll be able to spot it on the left-hand side graph as well. So it really tells you the impact that protection from solar gains and having mass to absorb heat can have on how stable an indoor temperature you can get. This is over the entire summer period. And so what were the results in terms of the recommendations from SIPSI, which I described earlier? Remember, there were 2 rules, the 1A rule at the top and the 1B rule at the bottom. And the rules have been defined using these dashed lines in both sets of graphs. Just to remind you once again, the upper graph was just, showing you the 1A rule, which says no more than 3% of the hours should be above a recommended threshold. I haven't given you what the threshold is because the threshold changes with the external temperature, but these are counts of when the recommended indoor temperature was exceeded in these homes. And just to make it clearer, that's a 2017 living room. There was only one living room in 2017 whose indoor temperature fell outside of the recommendation, whereas there were 4. If you look at the gray bars, there are 4 that are above the gray, the black dotted line. In 2018, in the bedrooms in 2017, no bedrooms in 2017 exceeded the 3% rule, whereas in 2018, 4 bedrooms exceeded the 3% rule. Please look carefully and find that these are not the same houses. So in fact, something like 4 living rooms and 4 bedrooms, which actually means 8 homes in total, as opposed to just 1 home in 2017 was overheating, as opposed to 8 homes in 2018, right? And looking just at bedrooms, in terms of the second criterion, which is anything over 26 Celsius, 57% of the bedrooms in 2017 were failing, and this went up to 94% in 2018. Now, I would like to say here that I'm not sure that this 1B criterion is a very robust criterion, because if nearly 60% of your homes are failing in an average summer, I think we would be hearing about them as being exceedingly uncomfortable. So therefore my suspicion is that the 26 Celsius threshold is probably a bit too strict, but it's hard to tell. There's actually not enough data. We actually don't know how people feel about these temperatures. All we can say is that given the current standard of the rule 1B I've shown here, nearly 60% of homes, even in a typical summer, are failing, and nearly 95% of homes in an extreme heatwave summer are failing. So these are actually definitely worrying trends if you just look at that difference of a 30 percentage point odd increase across these 2 sets. And because the SIPSI rule is if it fails either criterion, the house fails as a whole, the overall failure rate is 57% in 2017 and 94% in 2018. So anybody who trusts these recommendations should be exceedingly concerned about what is actually happening within these homes. So just to wrap up, we've got some answers. Homes on average are not meeting the WHO standard of 20 to 21 Celsius, but this may not be a problem if you're reasonably healthy. By reasonably or relatively, I simply mean you might have a long-term conditions or comorbidities, but perhaps they're not totally disabling you in terms of mobility or loss of speech and things like this. But what we've definitely found is that people are more comfortable. Remember, this is comfort, not health. They're more comfortable at colder temperatures than we previously imagined. And actually this implies a 44% lower heating demand, which is really quite interesting when we look at assessments around fuel poverty. But looking at the coldest homes, it's very clear that it is important to create familiar environments for the most vulnerable, and especially when suggesting changes to the home to avoid feeling overwhelmed and feeling a sense of control. In fact, this goes back to say what S.J. Hunt said earlier about when they provide a service. One of the nicest quotes to get back from a customer is the idea that, well, actually I was feeling quite relaxed about this and I understood what was happening. I feel in control of the decisions I'm being given advice on. And the second thing, which I think you guys are really great at, hopefully, the home improvement agencies and hopefully some of the local authorities, caseworkers and so forth, is actually building relationships of trust and confidence. And the more we work on that, the easier it then becomes to manage these extreme conditions and actually help people move out of potentially dangerous, either dangerously low or dangerously high indoor temperatures. And lastly, summer overheating could be a very, very serious risk. And you know, there's no point waiting around for the next heat wave to come along to give advice and support. This has to be anticipatory. It cannot be reactive. And we know that heat waves are just going to become far more common than they have ever been in the past. I was born in the year 1976, and in 1976 was the last one of the big major heat waves. And it took, you know, something like 20 years, 30 years before the next big one came along. But you're going to find that as we move along in time, the number of heat waves, the frequency is going to be increasing. Not only the frequency, but also the severity, how high the temperatures go. And the good news in a way is we've done lots of work to show that, you know, stuff that helps you with cold also helps you with hot. If you've got well-designed, reasonably proportioned homes that are well insulated and shaded, they will work well in the winter just as well in the summer. In fact, we've just published a major study of passive house homes from all over the UK showing just how well they perform across the seasons. What we don't know from this study in particular is stuff like effect of incomes or the effect of the dwelling characteristics within the sample on the responses we saw, as in the homes that I pointed out being heated for long periods but still not being able to attain good indoor temperatures. Why is that happening? Why is it that some people are heating for longer periods and other people for shorter periods? We don't actually know this. We haven't actually had a chance to drill down into some of the data we've collected. But I'd be happy to chat to anybody who wants to do that. And with that, I just want to say, if you want to reach out to me, I'm at the University of Bath. You can find me quite easily. And I've also put a link to my sort of professional web page where I detail some of the work we do and the most recent papers we published, including the recent work on passive house buildings that I just mentioned. With that, I'd like to stop. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take questions.
Hi, Shaun. That phone started ringing. Thank you for that. I think there was kind of a question about kind of with people staying in their homes more at the kind of present time. How do you think that will impact on potentially some of the results you found, or do you think that will impact on people's health?
Yeah, so I mean, it really is about making sure one of the issues, for example, if you've got issues with mobility within the home, and I think we've been lucky so far, this has not been a heat wave summer. One of the things we know for sure is people who are vulnerable in one way, shape or form is the ability to say, for example, open your windows. If you are not able to react sufficiently fast enough to those sudden changes, say in the external environment that are also slowly impacting the internal environment, you could be at risk. So we haven't seen any data. You know, I've been stuck at home as everybody else, and we haven't actually investigated this, but that certainly in other work we've published looking at overheating in vulnerable homes in, say, council homes in Exeter. It's another paper we published a few years ago. That was one of the issues, actually, issues around mobility or sometimes even lack of awareness. You know, the idea that if your window is open for ventilation, i.e. you're trying to solve a problem for ventilation, and at the same time your heating is on, well, you're just heating the external environment, and actually you're not going to be able to achieve high indoor air temperatures. So actually some basic, very, very basic energy literacy can go a long way in helping solve some of these problems. I don't know if I answered the question, happy to take more.
I think kind of one more was, we've heard that there's a Green Homes grant coming fairly soon. From the research you've done, are there any particular things you would suggest that people should focus on in kind of improving the energy efficiency or even the kind of, I suppose, kind of protection of their home from heat?
Yeah, so there's three things. I'm not familiar with the Green Home Grant, apologize for that, but there are three things from our experience that I can strongly recommend. The first point is insulate, insulate, insulate. It really does work. There's been concerns of late that actually insulation poses a risk for overheating. I would not say that it never happens. What I would say is it's not the fault of the insulation. It's the fault of not looking at the second problem, which is ventilate, ventilate, ventilate. So if you're not insulating right and ventilating right at the same time, you could create unintended consequences. So if you look at passive house as a standard, I don't know how many of you are familiar with passive house as a standard. What it does is actually does an airtight home, but that is always, always, always well ventilated. So these are the two things. Finally, you know, you're better off making sure that your windows and things are not oversized. Make sure it's well protected, especially if it's south facing glazing. You know, having some form of shading, and shading that is external rather than internal is better, because once the heat's got in, it's kind of quite hard to reject it outwards. Yeah. But rejection of heat, just to talk about the summer part again, cross ventilation, we've seen this in modeling work and in observational work, does, you know, really work miracles. So long as you have a pathway across a home, you can actually reject heat buildup during the day, at night. And we know that people need lower temperatures at night to have a high quality of sleep, which in any case is compromised as you get older. People tend to sleep less, but actually ensure that they get the sleep that they need, having good cross ventilation pathways. So if you've blocked up pathways for ventilation within your home through, say, a home improvement program of any kind, then actually you've increased the risk of overheating. Okay. So overheating is really a function of ventilation, not of insulation.
And have you got plans for more research in this area?
Yeah, we'd like to do more. Caroline has left, unfortunately, and we don't know where the next PhD studentship is going to come from. But I would absolutely love to work with anybody who is interested in doing, either themselves doing piece of PhD research or suggesting projects with us. Yeah, we're ready and open for business. We continue to do work across the world in some of these areas. We're looking at overheating, in fact, overcooling in parts of the developing world, which is a new problem that's cropped up. Yeah, so we're ready for more research if anybody's got any ideas.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Also, your contact details are on the screen there if anybody's interested in following that up with you.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Thank you for that, and thank you for your blog as well. It was a really interesting read, and I enjoyed all the graphs. I think
it's risky, but you know, I can't tell the. I think it's easier to tell a story with a picture of some kind, even if it is just a graph.
Yes. I think kind of one of the things we've found, I guess, over the last few months is that you can't beat a good graph, can you?
No. Right. You've taken control back. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers. So just before
the DFG surgery, your questions answered.
Just before we wrap up, there were a couple of questions posed in the Q&A box. So the first one from Grinda was around a recommendation for a stair lift to access the first floor where the bathroom is, and shower also needs to be installed, but the person only wants the bathroom and not the stair lift. Client has already had a few falls down the stairs. If you look at the case from R versus Islington, you can find my summary of it on the homepage of the Foundation's website. The judge in that case was very clear that each purpose needs to be assessed separately. So if the client in this particular case wants the bathroom and not the stair lift, then it was different purposes, but with kind of same effect in that case. So yes, if they want to apply for just the bathroom and not the stair lift, then by the judgment in that case, yes, they can. There was a couple of questions around, does the DFG cover only up to 30,000 for several components? So, and can the DFG be split into different applications for the same client? And again, if you read that case, R versus Islington, and the separate purposes being taken separately, then it does seem to indicate that you could do parallel applications to meet different purposes. Again, whether that would be challenged, and whether Islington go back and challenge that decision, it will be interesting to see whether that is upheld. But certainly that was the, I think that's the judgment that that you come to after reading R versus Islington. So as I say, my summary is on the Foundation's website. Please have a look. If you've got any comments or thoughts on that, then please do get in touch with me. So thank you for sticking with us. I know it's been a little bit longer than usual today, and we've had quite a broad range of content as well, haven't we? So more free webinars coming up. Next week, we'll be looking at housing associations and adaptations with Sheila McIntosh. In August, Rachel Russell will be talking about outcome measures, and we'll of course have the monthly webinar as usual. And we've got something a little bit special lined up for September, possibly October, but hopefully September, that more details will be available for shortly. So thank you all. Thank you to all our speakers, and we'll see you again next month.